Good afternoon. My name is Gopi Kalayal. I work here in marketing at Google. I'm delighted to welcome to the Googleplex a good friend of mine, Dr. Neha Sangwan. Sangwan has got a very versatile background. She's an engineer by training, an engineer in mechanical and biomedical engineering. And based on conversations with her, I get she can go head to head against any Googler engineer here as far as engineering design is concerned. But she was a bit smarter than many engineers, so many of us here, because she went on to medical school too, and practiced as a physician at Kaiser Permanente for many years. But during this time, she realized that rather than treat one patient at a time for a particular medical problem they have, you can be a lot smarter by teaching people about self-care and prevent the problem in the first place. So she went on to start a company, and she's the founder, CEO of a company called Intuitive Intelligence. And the focus of this company is to teach corporate employees self-care. Dr. Sangwan is a sought-after international speaker and media spokesperson on the topic of employee stress, wellness, and communication. And in particular, her expertise is on preventive health, stress management, and clear, direct communication. Today, Dr. Sangwan is going to focus on stress, something that many of us here are familiar with, something that is the primary cause of 95% of illnesses. And in particular, Dr. Sangwan makes the point that stress has got that often we get so used to it, we assume it is a part of our life, and don't even realize that on a continual basis it is doing damage to our physical, emotional well-being. So today, Dr. Sangwan is going to talk about how to recognize when that is happening and very quickly take action to prevent it. Please help me welcome Dr. Sangwan.
Thank you. Thank you. Is that me? Just hold it away. All right, we're going to see how I can do this. Click, and somehow I thought I was going to have these note cards up here so I didn't get stressed out. And we'll see how this works. So let's begin with a multiple choice question. You're on your way to work, cruising down the highway at 85 miles an hour, and suddenly your check engine light comes on. Do you A, pull over, pop the hood, and get to work? B, treat it exactly like you treat the low fuel light. You've easily got another 50 miles. Or do you C, put on your shades so it doesn't interfere with your texting? Our body has a complex set of feedback loops. It is a well-designed, it's actually better than a well-designed automobile or computer. It relies on error messages to tell us if something's wrong. The science of the body is extremely complex in regard to stress. Today we'll talk about a combination of how your nervous system, hormonal system, and immune system come together around stress to help propel you, as Gopi said, even through the times when stress just keeps accelerating. More importantly, I would like to make this extremely practical for you today. You will walk away with a framework and a way to decode stress, and with the remaining time, with questions, I would like to take live scenarios and help you, help show you how to decode that stress and come out with a different outcome. You guys in? Okay, great. Here we go. So if stress sounds complex, or seems complex, that's because it is. Walter Cannon in 1900 began laying the foundation for this, but the man credited with coining the term stress is Hans Selye. And in 1936, he decided that what stress was going to be defined as was an organism's non-specific response to stress. He then spent the rest of his career debating that. Is it this? Is it that? Now, what is he talking about? He's talking about the fact that bungee jumping to one person could mean pure thrill. And to another, it could mean what? Terror. So the same event causes different responses in people. So there are as many error signals that come in as there are people in this room or around listening, and they are unique. That signal is unique to you. So today I'd like you to start thinking about, as I start teaching you the science and some tools, I'll be asking you questions like, what is your signal? What are your coping strategies? So I'd like you to take a moment there to just think and reflect. This will be an interactive experience, it will be experiential, and it will be scientific. My biggest hope is that it's practical, and when you walk out, you can actually change something you do this afternoon. So as Gopi mentioned, it's true. My background is in engineering. And I went on to medical school, and all that means is that I'm a good Indian child. That's all that means. So what did I learn in that schooling? Well, in engineering school, I learned about fulcrums and loads, and I learned about the stress-strain relationship and equation. But really, if I could summarize it in one statement, it would be that when we're out of balance, things don't work. I went on to medical school and furthered my knowledge around the anatomy and physiology of stress and the science of the damage that stress can do on the human body, especially over time. Stress causes or worsens 95% of all illness. Everything from diabetes to heart disease to stroke and even cancer. That's why we call it the invisible killer. And despite all my knowledge, knowing about stress from every angle, somehow I managed to override my own signals and burn out. And I did this through a very well-crafted vending machine equation. 2 ice-cold Mountain Dews, plus a king-size Snickers bar, equals Neha's ability to stay awake in a 36-hour shift in the hospital and function. Many of you think you have to be online and available 100% of the time. Between tweets, texts, chats, status updates, and don't forget that middle of the night messaging from Hyderabad. You may not have signed up for a 36-hour shift constantly, but your body knows you have. So let's talk about how your body works. If I could simplify all my knowledge and learning in anatomy and physiology, it would come down to stress physiology 101. The nervous system. It's just like a car. 2 controls, an accelerator and a brake. Let's begin with the accelerator. When you experience getting cut off in traffic, or more realistically now, when that dreaded name mysteriously appears in your inbox, you experience something called the fight or flight response. That's when your accelerator is in full gear, and that's called the sympathetic nervous system. The good news is you've also got a brake. The brake is called the rest and digest system, and this will become important shortly. This is known as the parasympathetic system. So understanding this physiology, so when your body's in fight or flight mode, adrenaline kicks in, and it serves to get you out of danger. Yes? This is pretty common. Yes? No? Okay, sure. Okay, so basically, adrenaline kicks in, your heart rate shoots up, your blood pressure goes up, your muscles might tighten, and you might get shallow breathing, right? Your check engine light is on. right? So when you're out of balance, even though you love your job, you are not able to digest the food you just ate, even though the micro kitchen is 100 feet away. What shuts down is your brain function, your digestion, your creativity. And you may not have written it on your Google Geist survey, but I want you to know that you would be the first person in history to have these symptoms and not have it affect your sex life. The good news is, anybody here attend Gopi's Monday night yoga classes? All right, we got a few. So there's some yoglers in the audience. When you relax yourself, the opposite is true. So there is recovery and good news. So we all know that stress in life, at least in our modern day life, is inevitable. So let's talk a little bit about the evolution, and then we'll be moving into the practical tools. So how is our nervous system actually originally designed to support us? Well, when we were cavemen, let's call him Fred. In this situation, as he's running away, there's only one of two outcomes that's going to happen here. Either he gets caught and Fred gets eaten for lunch, or Fred gets away. So I believe in the underdogs. So let's assume he gets away. If he does, right now his fight or flight system is in full gear. But what used to happen is, a few minutes later, he'd be in rest and digest. And so his system was allowed to rebalance. His parasympathetic system kicked in, and his stress began to dissipate. So all the hormones and the biochemicals that get released in that fight or flight system, they immediately dissipate. So for all you engineers out there, do we have any engineers? Oh yeah, we do. Good, because I tried to put things back in equations. Now I still don't think that I could out-design you, but thank you, Gopi. But this is what it looks like. So a saber-toothed tiger, right, caveman days, plus his commitment to living, plus him running like crazy equals short-term stress. Now let's translate it to today. Modern day stress looks very similarly to our saber-toothed tiger is traffic coming in, that's physical traffic. It can also be virtual traffic that now piles up as you sleep. There are many other stressors that we can include here. There's physical stressors in the world, like earthquakes and tsunamis. There's physiological stressors in our lives, like when we don't get enough sleep, or we haven't fed ourselves well, or we decided to stop exercising until we got through that one project. All of those are our saber-toothed tigers. So we don't really have a problem committing to staying alive. Our problem is over-committing. And I don't know about you, but I'm not really worried about running away from anything. I'm pretty worried about how much I run around. And that is how we get stuck in the loop of long-term stress. So what we've basically done is very successfully or unsuccessfully turned a biological response that was designed to save our life into a way of living. So there's some negative medical side effects, as you might imagine. People have studied this extensively. Just take a look at a few of these. We've even learned that brain cells in the hippocampus die when under stress for a prolonged period of time. Your memory declines. Cognitive function and your ability to think creatively declines. Your decision making becomes, my decision is not which way do I get out of here. I go down to basic function. If there's a fire over there, I just start running. I don't really consider all my options and think about things. I actually just flee. Your immune function as well. After you've been under stress for a while, you'll tend to get more colds and viruses and flus. We know that. Also, really important is that your blood sugar increases. And when you have short-term stress, your body kicks out something called adrenaline. It's short-lived and it dissipates in your body quickly. If adrenaline continues over time, it turns into another hormone that is much more long-acting called cortisol. Cortisol takes up to 48 hours to break down in your system. So after you've been going on that really busy project and you finished, if you took some time off, you probably won't feel like you're on vacation for at least 2 days. Do you ever notice that? Like, oh, now I've arrived at vacation, right? Your cortisol finally starts to clear out of your system. Now, very important thing about cortisol that I learned is that cortisol in your body senses danger. And when you go into long-term danger, it deposits fat right around your midsection. Specifically, it doesn't know if you're moving into famine, and it deposits reserves right here. So for many people that come in and ask me, how do I lose those last 5 or 10 pounds? After I go through what they're eating, the next thing I say is, take me through a day in the life of you. And it becomes very clear to me why those last 5 or 10 pounds aren't coming off. So here we are, the stress decoder. It's a practical and powerful and simple tool that will help you decode stress in your life. It's a framework. It's a way of looking at the various and sometimes vague and complex experience of stress and simplifying it down so you can see where stress is coming in and how to break it down. Like I said, I am happy at the end if anyone is willing to bring up a live scenario and run this through the stress decoder. So if something comes up for you as we're doing this, I want you to keep it in mind and ask me shortly. So the framework, 5 things. It begins with the body, the mind, your feelings, your desires, and your actions. And the way it's set up is very clear that these are all connected. They're interconnected. So you have to connect the dots to end up with the end result that you're hoping for. So external signals. Let's talk about the body. How do you collect data points? Externally, you collect them through what? Your senses, right? So it's what you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. Every time I look through these, I start salivating. I'm like, oh yeah, it works, it works. So those are your external data points that you're collecting. Now, where it gets a little more complex is there's also internal data points. And you might recognize some of those. They're physical sensations, your heart racing, your stomach turning, your muscles tightening. All of these are your internal data that's controlled by your unconscious mind in relation to the external world. Sometimes the internal world as well, but for this example, let's say as it's related to the external world. So how you choose to connect these internal data points with the external ones often has you making up a story in your head, and we'll get to that in a moment. So one of the simplest things that I've taught to the physicians and nurses, I couldn't believe we all went through anatomy and physiology together, and no one really ever put this together. So it's going to sound simple in the beginning, but I really want you to listen just for a moment. When you feel these uncomfortable sensations, the first thing that people tend to do is try to figure out a way to get out of them. So they're running from their heart racing or their stomach turning. There's a lot of drugs that can help you take care of this, okay? And the simplicity of somebody saying to you, take a deep breath, is that a little annoying? Take a deep breath, like, leave me alone, right? Well, let me tell you why it works. So it works because The physiology behind it is that your lungs, and this is very approximate, take up approximately this much of your chest cavity. Okay? Where does the best oxygen exchange occur? Where? At the bases of your lungs. But I'm walking around saying, hey, can you grab me a glass of water? Thanks so much. Hey, I'll see you at 3. I'll meet you, over in the meeting room in 5 minutes. I'm using approximately this much of my lung capacity. And it's only when I get frustrated that I take a huge sigh and ever use my full capacity. Those of you that exercise very regularly, part of why you feel so good is you're using all of your lung capacity. You're oxygenating your body very well. So how can we use this in everyday life in a meeting, right after someone says something or does something that really annoys you? Well, you have something. No, I can't set this down, right? Because everybody has to hear it. Okay, so you have a diaphragm, which is an umbrella-shaped organ. Yeah, will you hold it for 1 second? So you have a diaphragm, which is an umbrella-shaped thin sheet of muscle. It's below your lungs and above your belly. When you take a very deep breath, I mean like a deep belly breath, and soften your belly, your diaphragm has to contract. And when it does, it stimulates the largest nerve of your parasympathetic or relaxation response called the vagus nerve. When it does this, thank you, it slows down your heart rate, it brings down your breathing, and you have a sense of feeling calm again. From that place, you can start to make more clear decisions. So when someone says, take a deep breath, I'm not sure they understood what they were saying, but that's what they're saying. So you have all the equipment in you, and I know that a lot of you are thinking, she can't tell me to do something that's going to take any more time in the day because I don't have any. Well, guess what? You already have to breathe. I'm not giving you something else to do. I'm telling you to pay attention to what you're already doing. So here comes in that stressor, whatever it is. You now are going to soften your belly. We're going to try this together because you're going to need it a little bit later on. That's why I'm going to have you do this. The reason I would actually go through it with you is I cannot tell you how many consultations I've done in the emergency department. Okay, anyone in the emergency department thinks they're going to die. True? Everybody, right? So their level of panic is enormous for stress. When I come in, this is what they're doing. Doc, I've been breathing heavy. And when they breathe in, they don't soften and let in the air. They suck in their stomach, and then when they breathe out, they do this. And that heightens your anxiety level. So it's very important that what you do is, everybody put your hand on your belly, and I'm going to show you, when you inhale, I need your ladies in the room, we are not taught culturally to let our stomachs be loose. We're taught to suck it all in. So this time, I just want you to relax. Let your shoulders, let gravity work on your shoulders. And as you breathe in slowly and deeply, I'd like you to feel your abdomen expanding with air. That's how deep you're going to breathe. So take a nice deep breath in. And as you exhale, move your belly button back towards your spine. And 2 more times. Deep breath in. And out. Belly button towards your spine. And deep breath in 1 more time. And out. Your vagus nerve starts working just in that moment, in that much time. Can you do it in a meeting? Is anybody going to know? Not really. You're the only one that needs to know. And all of a sudden, you'll start setting yourself up to have more clear thinking and make clearer decisions. So what I want you to know is the body is how we get external and internal data. The pause button, so DVD players have a pause button, so do you. Many people don't know how to use them or what to do with them. You just learned one skill that you can use in real time. So what I said was that your external signals and data, as well as your internal signals, get connected to create a story. This is very important. What movie do you create in your mind? Who would have guessed that we're all creative writers, right? Is it a horror film that you typically create? Is it a drama? Is it a thriller, or is it just a documentary? Whatever it is, people tend to create similar stories, right? Like the catastrophe story. I knew I wasn't going to get that promotion. There's no way it was going to work, right? However you connect those dots determines what type of story you create in your head. The problem is we don't know if that story was made into a book, whether it belongs in the fiction or nonfiction section. We don't know that yet until we connect the rest of the dots. So depending on how you connected the internal and external data and what movie you made up and chose to believe determines your emotions, okay? Well, emotions are not really well understood. And not only are they not well understood, I mean, do I really have to deal with those things at work? Don't those get to stay at home? How many times have you heard someone say at work, listen, I don't have to like Joe, I just have to work with him? Well, there's much research actually being done on positive emotions. Many books have recently been published on happiness and, the work, happiness at work, and gratitude and the power of gratitude and feeling grateful in your life. So now let's take a look at feelings. And why are they so complex? What emotions do you typically experience when you feel stressed? The most important emotion that you can feel is to be curious. But before we get there, I want you to know why there's benefits to doing this. Here's just a few of them. So emotions. They're simple because what? Because even when they feel complex, they can be described in one word. Jealousy is a pretty complex emotion. It can be described in one word. Anger, sadness, disappointment. Now, what makes things complex, especially emotions, is that they're often tied to that dreaded physical sensation in your body, and also to an experience of something you might have experienced before or are afraid of. So the most important thing I can have you remember here is that curiosity can get you untangled, right? Once you have this difficult experience inside your body, it then leads you to a short-term desire, which would be to get out of feeling that way. That would be your short-term desire. That leads you to coping mechanisms. Let's talk about a few coping mechanisms. If you're uncomfortable, your heart is racing, and your stomach's turning, you might head straight over to that micro kitchen and make yourself up a double latte. True? You might head over to the nap pod and hope that some shut-eye will make all of it go away. You might go out with your friends and have a glass of wine or 3. You might talk about the stressor to others. These are all short-term coping mechanisms that we use to get out of the discomfort of experiencing the physical sensations of our feelings. The problem is that they're short-term. I want you to take a moment, and I want you to think about a few things right now. The first one is, what is your physical sensation that you experience? And what coping mechanism do you predominantly use? Because some of us use multiple coping mechanisms. And most importantly, how long does it last? Because if you can actually pause and breathe, you may actually realize that, oh, hold on a minute. When you have been exposed to stress over a prolonged period of time, you actually develop multiple coping strategies that can numb out your ability to recognize that you're heading straight for danger. Let's move into the long-term actions, desires. So what are your long-term desires? Well, those are usually much more meaningful things than getting away from the uncomfortable feelings in my body. They're usually things like, I'd like to learn how to influence others. You know, I really think it would be great if I created some work-life balance. You know, I'd really like to show up in that conflict confident and curious. So your goals change from just getting out of that difficult physical sensation into much more meaningful things to you that are going to create outcomes in the life that you hope to have. So now we move on to the final piece, which is our final step in the stress decoder, which is how you take action. If your action is solely to avoid the physical feeling, you will do those coping strategies we discussed. And if it is to solve a problem, you will actually create new behaviors. And that's what we're going to talk about. So let me take a simple example. And let's run the stress decoder through a simple example and see how the outcome might change. Before I move on, does that sound good? Everybody's with me. Okay, lots of nodding. So we're going to connect the dots in a different way. The first time I'm going to run it through with the short-term desire to get out of the feeling you're in. The second time I run it through, I'll run it through with the goal of the long-term desire and show you how things will change. So you're in anticipation of a 4 o'clock interview screening for a promotion. It's the final interview. You're walking down the hall at 10 a.m. This is at 4 p.m. You're walking down the hall at 10 a.m. and you see your boss walking straight toward you. And your boss is the interviewer. You get the guts up to say, hey, see you at 4. Your boss looks up at you and continues walking while she's texting, or he's texting. Oh. What just happened in your body? Your heart might start racing, your throat might get tight, and you might feel a sensation of your stomach dropping. So, what's the story you would make up in your head connecting those external dots and internal dots? The external dots are pretty simple. They are, I saw my boss walking towards me. I heard myself say, see you at 4. I saw him say nothing, or her say nothing, and text. Those are the data points. The internal data points were all those sensations I just described. Now, what story might you make up? Oh, he never said anything about my presentation to leadership last week. I knew he didn't like it. I don't think I'm going to get this promotion. What a waste of my time. Then you move into a feeling, which might be defensive, angry, or hurt. Possibly. And so you head straight to your computer, and your status update says, bad day, period. Anybody up for a drink at 7? You proceed back over to the micro kitchen where you see 3 of your buddies from business school, and you proceed to tell them how rude your boss was this morning, and you cannot believe this is not a fair process, while you cook up another double latte. Actions are that you show up at the 4 o'clock interview, wired on caffeine and sugar, with closed body language, answering with very abrupt answers, bracing yourself for the worst. Yeah? Let's run that same scenario through the stress decoder. Same scenario with your boss walking by you. You say, see you at 4. Your boss doesn't say anything, and continues texting. The external data points are exactly the same. The internal data points can exactly be the same. How you make sense of them and what type of story you run in your head is what changes. So at first, you recognize that your stomach just dropped and your heart started racing. So you take 3 deep breaths. And as you do that, your typical nightmare film begins. I knew he didn't. So let me finish up. I wanted to take you through a little guided imagery. Do you guys know what guided imagery is? To help you, I see yes. It's basically a doorway to the unconscious mind, and then I'm going to close. It is a way in which you access the right side of your brain, which is more visually oriented, to shift your mood state and your physiology in your body. The way I know that all of you can do this is, if anyone has daydreamed before, you can do guided imagery, okay? And the other way that you can understand this really easily is, if you've had a nightmare before and woke up and realized that no one was chasing you, but you were sweating and the sheets were wet and your heart was racing, you can see how powerful just your mind can be in changing your physiology, even when the threat is not real, it's imagined. Does that make sense? So I want to close and just have you go through a guided imagery. So put your both feet on the floor, and you're going to use that breathing that I talked to you about a little earlier. And I'd like you to soften your belly, allow gravity to pull your shoulders back down towards the earth. And you can keep your eyes open or closed. People close their eyes just to get rid of visual stimuli, but you do whatever's comfortable for you. Take a nice deep breath in and out. And I want you to begin by starting at the top of your head and just noticing your forehead and your eyes, around your eyes. Noticing if there's any messages that your body is giving you. And with your next breath in, moving down into your jaw and cheekbones, and paying close attention to the base of your tongue, allowing it to relax. And with your next deep breath in, gently moving into your neck and your shoulders, a place we often carry the weight of the world. Just noticing if they feel relaxed or tight, if one feels different than the other. With your next deep breath in, I'd like you to move down your arms into your elbows and forearms, all the way into your hands and fingers. And gently moving back up into your chest cavity, paying attention to your rib cage and how it expands and contracts without affecting your heart and lungs all day long. And then I'd like you to sit for a moment in your heart space and experience the compassion that you give to your friends, your colleagues, your family, and the world. And with your next deep breath in, gently moving down into your abdomen and pelvis, feeling your bottom against the chair, and how you are supported. And gently moving into your thighs your knees, and your calves. Just noticing if there's any messages your body wants to give you. Giving it fresh oxygen and attention. And with your next deep breath in, moving down into your heels and your feet, and the balls of your feet, and your toes. And for a moment, just noticing here what a few deep breaths and a little bit of focused attention can do for your body. With your next deep breath, I'd like you to slowly travel back up into your chest space and settle back around your heart. And as you do, I'd like you to take all that compassion you give out to the rest of the world, and I'd like you for a moment to shower it upon yourself. Taking a nice deep breath in and out. Begin to wiggle your fingers and toes and allow yourself to gently come back to this room. And I want to leave you with the next time you're driving home at 85 miles an hour, try slowing down. When you let your foot off that accelerator, you not only physically slow down, you physiologically slow down. I want you to envision yourself breathing slowly and deeply as you're listening to your favorite music on the ride home. Reflecting on the highlights of your day. And in fact, today you're especially elated because today you just received the promotion material. Thank you.